How is it going, everyone? It's Cade Lumbid here, and today we are going to be talking about another Japanese import game. This is a Japan exclusive that came out on the PlayStation 1. We're going to be talking about Megatudo 2096. Now, it's spelled Megatudo. I think it's actually Megatude, though, because whenever you start the game, there's literally like an Optimus Prime voice that kicks in, and it literally goes, Megatude 2096. So I'm pretty sure it's actually just Megatude, so I'm going to call it Megatude for the rest of this. But this is a really cool-looking mech fighting game. It is basically your standard type of fighting game, but you have gigantic mechs that you get to battle with instead. And one of my favorite things about this game is just the design of all of the mechs. The designs of the mechs are really freaking cool. I really think that they did a good job with the graphics and everything too. Obviously, this is an early 3D game, but even though it's the early 3D graphics, I think it still looks pretty darn cool. I like the way it looks, and even though, yeah, it's definitely a PS1 graphics, I still think it looks pretty darn cool. Just the art style that they used, the environment that they chose for every single one of these stages, I just really like all of it. The color palette that they used, there's lots of bright colors on the screen. Even some of the robots, the mechs themselves have just really bright paints on them, and they just look really, really cool. So I actually love the aesthetic of this game. If you like kind of like, shiny mechs, if you like stuff like Gundam, if you like stuff like, Evangelion, if you like that type of style of suits, you're probably going to like the way that this game looks. It's very graphically pleasing. It's very aesthetically pleasing. So let me first say that right off the bat. The game itself, it's nothing too crazy, I will say. You don't have a whole lot of options. Right when you get to the main menu, it's basically just like, do you want to do 1 versus 1 with another player, or do you want to do tournament mode? And that's basically like all it gives you right from the beginning. However, I will say, going into this game and starting it up, the fact that every menu was in English, even though this is a Japanese exclusive, was actually pretty cool. I did not expect that, so that was kind of neat. And even when you go to the settings, even the settings menu is actually in English, so it's super easy to pick up this game if you are, an English speaker and you don't know a look of Japanese. It's super easy to pick this game up and still be able to play it because everything pretty much is in English. There's only like one thing I ever saw that was in Japanese, and it was just asking me, do I want to overwrite my save? So I think that's actually really cool. But you can set it to whatever difficulty you want, and then you can go into tournament mode. Tournament mode is basically going to be the main option for most players. And then it's like every other fighting game tournament where you just go through a big old gauntlet of different fights, and you try to get to the end and fight a big old final boss. The final boss in this game is pretty cool too, because he's like a transforming mech, and until then you don't really see any transforming mechs until you get to the final boss, and then he like flies up to you, and he's like some sort of airplane looking thing, and then he just transforms into his full robot self once you do a little bit of damage to him. And I thought that was really cool. I'm not going to say that this game is super like technical or anything. I never really found out like any major combos or anything, and overall the game itself, like the actual combat and everything, it does feel pretty clunky when you're doing melee combat. However, I think one thing that this game does differently that I did enjoy is the fact that there's a lot of ranged combat. And you can use your blaster. Each mech has like a blaster that they can use. And you can also press the shoulder buttons. You can press R1 and R2. And you can make your character like glide around the arena that you're in, and you can kind of like keep away from the enemy and do long range shots and just try to kind of peck the enemy's health away that way. I actually thought that was kind of cool, and it made sense too, because you are a lot tougher and you can do a lot more damage and keep yourself safe if you are using a gun instead of a sword in this game, and that makes sense. If someone brings a sword to a gunfight, they're going to get destroyed. So I like that this game kind of embodies that. So I do like that, and I like the movement actually. The actual movement of gliding around in circles and then, trying to get the enemy's health really low, and then maybe like what I usually do is I usually try to avoid their attacks, stay back, use the rifle, and then once I get their health low enough, that's when I pull out my melee attack and then I go in for the final kill. That's usually what I do, and I just like the way it feels in that way. I think that stuff feels pretty nice, even though the actual like melee combat is a little bit clunky. The actual just gliding around the arena, the actual movement of just whenever you're not using the actual attacks themselves, that stuff feels pretty good. I think the actual movement feels pretty good. It's just the melee attacks themselves that for some reason feel a little bit off. But still though, I really do enjoy this game. I enjoyed each of the different stages. The stage designs look really cool. They're pretty similar, I will say, and they probably could have used some gimmicks or something to just make it feel a little bit different. But the ones that are there, I still think look pretty darn cool. I like the way that they look. I like using the different mechs. I will say I've noticed that a lot of the mechs feel pretty similar. The main differences that you'll probably notice between the mechs is that some are quicker, some have more health, and some are just really slow, tankish ones. So that's kind of the stuff that you're looking at when it comes to the differences. When it comes to like their animations and stuff, honestly, the animations they're different, I think, but they don't look that different. So it's kind of hard to tell. But either way, I do like some of the weapon choices for some of these mechs too. One of the mechs that I was actually using had two lightsaber, two blades. I don't want to call them lightsabers, but they had two different light blades that they were using, and that was actually pretty cool also. So the fact that some of the characters dual wield light blades, one of them is running around with like a sword and a shield, there's all sorts of different ones. There's a samurai mech. There's some really cool designs here, and overall this is just a really fun fighting game, and it's really cheap too. You can usually find Megatudo for less than like $15, so if you can find it for that price and you have a Japanese PS1, pick it up and give it a chance. It's actually pretty fun, and I will say, I have heard that this game runs really good on PS1s, but doesn't run so well on PS2s. I played on PS1 hardware, so I didn't have any issues, but keep that in mind. If you are wanting to play this, you may want an actual PlayStation 1 system to play it on instead of a PlayStation 2. So just kind of keep that in mind. But overall, Megatudo is a really fun mech fighting game. It's something that I'm glad to have in my collection, and it's something that I would definitely, I think I'm definitely going to put more time into the future, because I really enjoyed this game. I enjoyed the different mechs, I enjoyed just the aesthetic of it, I enjoy everything about this game. It's just got that PS1 charm, and overall the game itself has a lot of charm, and I don't even think it's actually connected to anything. I couldn't find any sort of like series related to it, so I think it's just its own thing. But man, if they made model kits of this stuff, I probably would buy some, because I love the way these mechs look. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go check out Megatudo if you can find it for a fair price, and I'll talk to you in the next one. You have a wonderful day. Bye bye.